Hi, beautiful people. I hope you are well wherever you are in the world. I'm always thinking, maybe that's why I'm always going through something. Maybe that's why I'm always learning something. I'm always learning, and I think that comes from curiosity, and I think that comes from care. And I think that some of the learning almost comes from a place of great care, because since I care so much, I'm hard on myself in many ways. And when I find out those ways that I have, when I found out, when I have found the ways in which I have erred or made mistakes, then because I am so hard on myself, it makes it difficult to change. And I want to talk about self-compassion today because I listened to my first episode of the OCD Stories, the podcast, and the episode was about self-compassion. And what's interesting is that the episode stated that people who have OCD tend to be very critical of themselves. And I thought about my mother-in-law. I thought about my partner. I thought about my father-in-law, because my father-in-law is really different than my mother-in-law. And I don't think he has any bit of OCD. I remember when I lived with them, I think they were opposite in that regard. And sometimes I think that would cause strife in their relationship, if I may say that. But living with my partner has, it would also cause, when I didn't have OCD tendencies, it would also cause difficulty in our relationship. And I wonder about this piece of self-compassion, because it strikes me as so fascinating. Because in the episode, they talk about having a friend who comes to you with the story behind the OCD. And with any story, right? It just happens to be the story behind the OCD, but if you can think of just any story that your friend comes to you with and tells you that they're struggling with something, or they have guilt about something, or they've made a mistake, or they've royally screwed up, and thinking about, what would you say to them? How would you feel about them? I know that a lot of my OCD comes from guilt. And I remember my soul sister, when I had the conversation with her first about my guilt, when I woke up into all the ways that I had messed up in the 30 years before that time. I remember her saying that I didn't wake up so that I could be punished now. I woke up so that I could see the light, so that I could change. And that makes so much sense to me, because if my heart wants to be a better human being, if my heart's desire is that I am to be a better human being constantly, because that's what my heart wants every day, then I'm grateful and I'm thankful that I should see myself in a better way. And that comes from realizing the mistakes that I've made. And I think, the self-compassion, the compassion that my soul sister showed me at that time, like, if I think about it, I really was making a really big deal out of it. And, we have so many things attached to our relationships, to the events in our life, to the outcomes, to the way things are. We are really attached to the way things are. And so when things change, it's sometimes feels like this desperate, and it sometimes is this desperate clinging to what was. And when we no longer have that, we seek the control that we found in that thing that we no longer have, or that no longer is. But we strive to find comfort, and maybe in different ways. And so that's perhaps one way in which OCD manifests, as in it comes about, is that we are seeking the control and the comfort that we once had, or that we previously had. And I never had OCD before. I had lived in several apartments with my partner, and there's also some different things there. I never really had a routine, and so I never really cleaned consistently. And so I don't know if I would have experienced OCD if I had cleaned in my life before, if I had a cleaning regimen, if I had a cleaning routine. And I think that normally, people normally do have cleaning routines, right? I think most people have a cleaning routine in their house, and most people don't have OCD. So I'm trying to, and so maybe that isn't the case, right? Like, maybe I would have been cleaning, and it would have not been with OCD tendencies. So maybe we can put that off the table. But it just so happened that for me, at the same time that I started cleaning, and it was really after a time in my life in which my relationship severed. So my childhood sweetheart of 20 years and our relationship quite literally fell apart. And I was so attached to that relationship that I was desperately clinging to it. And in the aftermath of that, I learned many things. First of which was that I really needed to live for myself. And in living for myself, one of the first things that I started doing was cleaning, giving myself a clean environment, because when you are the only one that is living with yourself, you really start to notice your preferences, and one of which may be that you prefer to have a decluttered environment, and that something on the floor, like a piece of dirt or debris on the floor, may catch your eye every time you look at it and create a thought in your head, which is unnecessary. And so it's this idea of what do you choose to live with, and how do you constantly give gifts to yourself. So I started cleaning for the first time in my life at the age of 31 years old. And now 2 years later at 33, still trying to sort through my mind and still trying to live for myself. I'm still on that journey. And I want to say probably, but it actually is the most beautiful journey that I have ever been on in my life. And sometimes I think that all of this, that every part of this, even the OCD, even the rumination, even the obsessive thoughts, even the compulsions, even the things that I feel like are out of my control, but I really know aren't, all of it is just so beautiful because I got to live for myself. So maybe that's one advantage that I have, that I hope that anyone listening to this also can find, that because you live for yourself, that the other things really don't matter as much. And honestly, if they're just part of the process of living more and more of yourself, and finding more of yourself, and finding more gifts to give yourself, and finding more delight in your day, in your thoughts, in your experience, just finding more satisfaction, finding more pleasure, just really makes the other things like fall into the background. And I listen to Jeff Warren on the Calm Meditation app, and he often says he's had several meditations that talk about, well, can you live with this for the rest of your life? You just the way that you are. Can you live with yourself the rest of your life? And I know that without a doubt, resoundingly, the answer is yes. Because I love myself, and I love everything that's happening. I love the direction that I'm going in. And so I would also encourage you to discover and align with and be on the journey of finding your calling, finding a greater purpose in your life and in all of this and everything that is happening to you, because truly it is happening for you. And it's almost like when we surrender to that, then perhaps there is a less of a need to seek control. because it's all happening for me anyway. And I always believe that in the grand scheme, in the biggest bubble that could encapsulate a human being and their experience, in the greatest scheme of their life, that encapsulates everything, every single thought, every single experience, everything, every part of this human being's experience, every part of a human being's experience, down to the slightest, smallest, shortest, most momentary thought. I believe that all of it is happening for us. And that's really been a gift for me because, I mean, it's part of my storytelling ability, my storytelling gift, and my nature, really, that has me look at everything, every part and piece, from the greatest to the tiniest that we still see. So everything in our experience, and I guess I can't emphasize that enough, from the greatest dream to the smallest, most split second thought, but that you still see. Everything is playing a part in the bigger, the most grandest scheme. And even by not giving something attention, even if you are not meant to give something attention, even if giving it attention does not serve you, in that act of disregard and redirecting your focus, that is also and still serving the grandest scheme. And so, whatever you are experiencing, right, whatever you see, whatever comes into experience, because, I mean, a thought isn't a thought if we don't see it, right? So then that brings the question, well, do I have thoughts in my head that I don't see? No, because a thought is one that we see. So if we see it, that means that we're already giving it our attention. And so often in life, there are things that we will give our attention that we then realize don't bring us satisfaction, actually bring us dissatisfaction. And so when that happens, it's then our opportunity to redirect our focus, to redirect our attention on something that does bring us satisfaction. And there are so many things that bring us satisfaction. If you look around you, if you look at your life, if you look at your memories, if you look at your relationships, if you think of a child in your life that brings you so much delight that you have no resistance towards loving, and who has no resistance towards loving you. If you think of something that you really enjoy, whether you enjoy a rainy day or a cup of coffee, even just the thought of it, you can bring yourself so much satisfaction. And so when you find yourself in a thought, or you notice that you're having a thought that does not bring you satisfaction, Find one that does. Redirect yourself in that moment to a thought that brings you delight, that brings you pleasure, that brings you satisfaction, that makes you smile, that makes you feel good. Because in life, there will always be things that bring us satisfaction. There will always be things, well, I guess I can say there will always be things that bring us satisfaction, and there will always be things that bring us dissatisfaction. Those two things will always exist together, and they exist because of each other. Hot exists because of cold, light exists because of dark, cleanliness exists because of, or I should say clutter exists because of a clutter-free space, right? So everything exists in contrast, and the contrast is so necessary. It has to be. It is because it is. One exists because the other exists. And so when we learn to appreciate the contrast, and you certainly will, you will start to even take delight in the contrast, because you know that the next thought, the next preference, the next experience that you wish to have is the opposite. And so if you use the contrast really for its intended purpose, which is to direct you to satisfaction, then you have won. The contrast has served you. You have won the contrast. And so I want you to think about this in a way maybe that you have never thought about your dissatisfaction before. In a way that you have never thought about dissatisfaction and feeling dissatisfied before. Wherever and whatever you feel dissatisfied with, well, my life isn't going exactly the way that it should. And I'll change that language to the way that I want it to. I don't have control over certain things about my life. I don't have control over certain things about my mind, or at least I feel like I don't have control over my mind. And I feel like I don't have control over my life, and maybe in many ways we don't. In many ways, I don't have control over the relationship that I no longer have in my partner who decided that he didn't want to be with me, or they didn't want to be with me. And they walked away, they walked out of my life. Or in my relationship with my sister, or my friend who decided to walk out of my life and no longer have a relationship with me. Or the fact that somebody I really love, a parent of mine, is ill and I can't do anything about it. I can't change it. I can't make them better. I don't have control. But where I do have control is focusing on the things that make me feel good. Focusing on the things that are going right, that are going well. And I have so many of those. I have so many of those. If I think about my relationships and the people that do admire me, the people that are enamored with me, like my colleagues or my students, or so many of the beautiful interactions that I've had that have been so fruitful, where people have thanked me either verbally or just in their energy, that I have also found so much delight in interacting with, and so much satisfaction, so much fulfillment, that I could focus on any of those conversations, any of those interactions, and just feel so much delight. If I think about who I am, if I think about what makes me unique, what makes me special, what makes me a beautiful person, if I think about my beautiful heart and how that heart gives and how that heart loves and how that heart feels, even in just the things that I want for people in my life or people in general. If I think about all the times in my life that I've wanted something for someone that I love, even if they didn't want that same thing for themselves. Just my heart's desire is so beautiful. Just the fact that it wants it wants for other people. If I think about how I choose to be, if I think about my beauty, if I think about who I am today, and even who I want to be tomorrow, and who I'm striving to be in my principle, in my integrity, in who I am when I am alone versus with a stranger, with my lover, with my mother, with my father, and how I strive to close that gap, how I strive to make sure there is no discrepancy in between who I am when I am alone versus who I am with the world, in the world, who I am alone in the privacy of my own bedroom, in the privacy of my own thoughts. How I always try to wish people well. How I find so much delight in reaching out to them and sending my love and wishing them well. How I take so much, how that is so delightful for me. And I can think about just the message that I sent recently, and just wishing someone a happy birthday and wishing them multiple times, because it brings me so much delight every time I do so. And sometimes I think that, wow, if I have all this dissatisfaction in my life, then that just makes me need to find so much satisfaction. And if I have all this dissatisfaction just so I could find all this satisfaction, and if some of this satisfaction at least includes somebody else benefiting, because I benefit first and foremost. I take the most delight when I wish someone a happy birthday, or when I send them my love, when I wish someone happy birthday multiple times, or when I send somebody my love multiple times because I just happen to think of them so many times. I take delight in that first and foremost, but to even think that someone else might benefit, well, then maybe that's why I have all this dissatisfaction in the first place. 'Cause I get to redirect my attention on things that bring me delight. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And if I have to live all my life with this dissatisfaction, which I hope that I don't have to live with the amount of dissatisfaction that I feel sometimes, right? But I do understand that the contrast will always exist. I will experience and we will experience contrast all our life because it is necessary and because it makes the opposite so much more delightful. It actually brings delight to the opposite. How would I know what is joy? How would I know what is satisfaction? How would I know what is delight? How would I know what is pleasure if I didn't experience the opposite of that physically, emotionally, mentally? How would I know? How would I know that if I didn't take a break from physical pleasure, how would it ever feel good again? And how would it feel the best that it ever could? Maybe I want to take the longest break from it, or maybe I want to go without it for a long time. And it's okay to be without the satisfaction too. Right? Sometimes we find ourselves with a strong dissatisfaction. And so the lack of physical pleasure doesn't have to be pain, but it can just be filling your time with other things that bring you satisfaction so that when you return to the physical pleasure, that you will find it enormously pleasing. Whether that's eating, whether that's masturbation, whether that's sex with somebody else. Sometimes you want to forego the pleasure and hold off so that that act can be pleasurable again. And so if we relate the same analogy to the dissatisfaction and the things that we really have no control over in life, like a relationship falling apart and somebody choosing not to be with us, and also realizing perhaps that we were not ready for that relationship, and we have some growing to do and some preference finding to do within ourselves. We need to learn about ourselves before we put ourselves out there for somebody else. Or somebody in our life is really ill and we can't make them better. Sometimes in life, there are things that are really hard. And we find that they are totally out of our control. Right? If I want to seek physical pleasure again, if I want to eat sweets, if I want to enjoy an orgasm again, I can forego that. I can I can stop that activity for a while until I decide to pursue it again. But I don't have control over my relationship that fell apart. I don't have control over my beloved person who is ill. And I feel so much dissatisfaction about it. I can
when I think about it. So, what do I do? Well, in the same way, I redirect my focus, I redirect my attention onto things that make me feel good. And really, that comes down to redirecting my focus on me, on what I can do, because I will find the control that I was giving that relationship or that situation with my beloved person being ill, whether that's my parent or friend or family member. I will I will find the control that I had been giving that situation, which I now lost. I will regain that control by finding it in myself. And sometimes that gives birth, and perhaps it is meant to give birth to such a legacy, to such a movement, to such a contribution to this world. And sometimes it's a really great thing when anything propels us to find satisfaction and control and focus on ourselves. Because what comes from that can serve the entire world. And so I encourage you, as I also encourage myself in saying this. I encourage myself. I look for what can be born. What can be born from redirecting my attention on the things that make me feel good, on the things that bring me delight, on the things that bring me satisfaction and pleasure. If I follow that, if I follow all of that, what can be born from that? Movements are born. Contribution is born. Our greatest work is born. It's not born out of the need. Maybe just work is born out of the need. But our greatest work, our highest contribution, comes from our greatest satisfaction, our heart's alignment, our heart's desire, our heart's calling, our delight. What do you take pleasure in doing? Is it writing? Is it speaking? Is it helping people in some capacity that you have helped yourself? What is it? Is it dancing? Is it singing? Is it advising people in some way about something that you have learned in yourself, in your own life? Now the attention and the focus really has been put on you. Truly, you are in the spotlight. Now you are in the spotlight. What will you do? every great journey was made of suffering. And maybe all beautiful people, maybe all inner beauty, inner growth, integrity, maybe everything that we aspire to be and love and desire and want is is perhaps connected to that which we don't want, that that which we might even suffer before realizing that we want, that which we might suffer in the process of realizing that we want. The contrast makes everything, not only makes everything, but it makes everything possible. So, if you are struggling in your life with OCD, with thoughts that feel like they are so real, thoughts that feel like they are so real, thoughts that feel like they are out of your control, or your life being actually being outside of your control. Within your mind, temporarily, it may feel like it's out of your control and temporarily may be out of your control. But you ultimately know that you have control over your mind, that you'll figure it out. That even if it feels like it's out of control right now, that you ultimately are in control of changing your mind. Whether that means redirecting your attention until as much as you need to until the unwanted thoughts, the undesirable thoughts fade, the thoughts that don't bring you satisfaction. And we don't even have to talk about OCD as, to the extent of OCD. We can just talk about thoughts in general, right? This applies to thoughts in general. If you find yourself thinking thoughts that don't bring you satisfaction, thinking dissatisfying thoughts, thoughts that don't make you feel good, then bring yourself to a different thought that does make you feel good. And you can even have a list of thoughts or memories that make you feel good. You can keep a running list of those. You can write them down if you want. If that helps you, you can try that. I mean, I just in saying that, I want to try that. I have a really beloved student of mine. She's 6 years old and I call her my best friend. And often when I've had thoughts that I don't want to have, I'll then think of her. And I'll imagine her face and her smile and her expressions, and just the thought of her just warms my heart, brings me so much delight. Sometimes I often find delight in doing things for myself and caring for myself. So, for example, sometimes when I'm in the shower, I will really slow down. I find that when my mind is really active, then I'm more likely to have a bunch of scattered thoughts, a bunch of jumbled thoughts, and then there's the possibility or the chance that I can have an unwanted thought, or a thought that doesn't feel good. And then I think to myself, I can just slow down right now, and I'll be very intentional and just very slowly wash my face with a face wash. Like very slowly move my fingers in a circular motion. Or if I'm washing my arms with body wash, very slowly use my fingers to make circular motions on my forearms. And I know that even if I, in between these motions, even if I feel like in the background, which sometimes happens, that the unwanted thought will come about, it'll somehow show its presence, even as I do that, or even in between the thoughts. That's okay. That's okay. Because my major satisfaction, the majority of the space is filled with my satisfaction. And I know that the more and more I do that, the less and less I will have the unwanted thoughts. They will soon just fade, completely fade. And in the OCD Story podcast that I referred to, that I listened to earlier at the beginning of this episode, it's called OCD Stories. In the one episode that I listened to about self-compassion, I believe that it refers to, and I may be wrong, maybe mistaken, maybe another podcast but that I listened to about this, but somehow I heard that our brain is like a computer, and it only knows what what we feed it. And I think that I don't think it was actually that podcast. It was actually the podcast called OCD Recovery or OCD Help. Just a new podcast that I discovered today. So I may be wrong about it, but it's actually it's called OCD Recovery or OCD Help. And the episodes are really short, but I remember listening to when I was listening to a few of them this morning. In one of the episodes, it said something about how the brain is a computer, and so the more and more you give it information about something being important, the more and more you reinforce something, the more it will give you that same experience. And so we know that the more attention we give something, the more importance we give something, the more it will repeat itself in our experience. The more it will come into our mind, the more our brain will give us the same experience. The more you reinforce that you wipe your body when you're washing the dishes at the sink and a drop of water hits your skin, and then you wash that part of you, or you wipe that part of you with your fingers, right? And you take some clean water and you wipe that part of you. the more you reinforce this this thing that you just did, the more you will remember to do it each time. Whereas if there is something that is causing you a thought that you're not really sure that you want to follow up with an action, if you disregard it, then there is a possibility that your brain will not make you think of that thing again. Eventually, you may not think of that thing again. Now, in some instances, like I thought of myself, I just in the example of washing the dishes at the sink and the water splattering on me, even if it's just a drop and I feel it, I realize that I don't really like the feeling of the wet drop splattering on me. So what I've begun to what I've thought just recently is that I can make sure that I'm clothed, like fully clothed, so that the water doesn't get on me. The water gets on my arm, I don't seem to mind as much, although I do. But then I can think to myself, well, is it really something that I want? Is the experience something that I want? And maybe I have to think about this more. But is it something that I want? Do I want to stand at the sink and have this quote unquote dirty water that bounces off the bottom of the sink? Do I want it to hit my arm? I mean, I never really cared before, but I didn't really wash dishes before. But what I can do is use gloves, right? I can use gloves and see how that goes. So in wearing gloves and a t-shirt, I can find out, if that's an experience that that I really care about the wetness or that I really care about the cleanliness about. It's interesting because I guess you also want to ask yourself the question, is it an experience that I want to have, minus the cleanliness, minus the OCD part of it? Is an experience that I want to have, considering the other things, like maybe I don't like the sensation of the water hitting the wetness on my skin. When I'm in the bathroom and I'll have an unwanted thought and I'm washing my hands, I will actually take another pump of soap and wash my hands again, just from the unwanted thought that for me many times arises from guilt. So some past guilt that I have. And I, without even thinking sometimes, not even realize that I'm doing this, but I actually am reinforcing the practice by washing my hands another time. And then I think to myself, well, what method do I want to have in the bathroom? Is it okay for me to wash my hands once? Or do I have a routine of washing it twice? Because if I just wash it twice and it's not related to any momentary compulsive thought at that moment, then it's fine with me. If I just wash my hands twice every time, then that's okay with me, because that's my thing. That's what I do. It's not related to any fear. It's just what I decided to do. But then if I'm having an OCD thought, then I might actually, then there have been times where I'll take a third pump of soap. And sometimes that thought comes about because I touched another surface, like I touched the faucet by accident. And then so I'll have the thought, but then I can think to myself, well, is the faucet clean? Do I actually want to touch the faucet? No.
right? So, but then I can make sure that I keep the faucet clean so that I can not have the thought. So that if my hand touches it by accident, then I just it doesn't matter. So that's something that I'll think about doing. So the OCD is actually teaches me to give myself a clean environment. And when I give myself the clean environment, I don't have the unwanted thoughts as much. Yeah, I actually don't have the unwanted thoughts because the unwanted thoughts are related to touching a dirty surface or a surface that I imagine is dirty, um, which I mean, probably isn't. But what's your definition of dirty? I don't know. I think my OCD has manifested a lot in the in the germs. Um, in the germs that I imagine something, a surface or something to have. So I guess I can ask myself, what experience do I want to have? Right? So I want to wash my hands twice. I want to wash them individually first and then second together. Or maybe I don't even have to wash them a second time together. Maybe I can just, well, I think I get a better clean out of rubbing them together. So I will rub them together the second time. It's interesting. These are like levels of thought that I never really had before. And I didn't, so many new things happened for me when the part of me that dissociated returned when I was 31. And I started, I mean, I was present in a way that I hadn't been before. So there's just, there was just a lot that was um, occurring for me at the same time. And it was difficult to distinguish my mental experience from what it was before because it just felt like I was present for the first time. And so I don't know what was new. And I guess I really can't compare much to my former life. And here I am just trying to figure out what works for me now, almost like a child. Like what is working for me right now? And I kind of have to start from scratch with everything, and that's okay because in a beautiful way. It's probably a good thing that I don't have the former experience because I get to decide everything right now, and I'm meant to, right? It's just the way my life has turned out. I'm meant to give meaning and assign meaning to everything right now. I'm really meant to live right now. Like the last 30 years of my life are just gone. They're a waste. Like the past is history. That's truly what I have been shown. The past has no bearing, no burden on me. So I'm learning. That's a really great thing now that I say that and realize that I'm completely free of the past. And so even, I mean, I can assign everything. I can figure out what I want to do right now at the age of 33. I can figure out how I want to do everything, right? How I want to wash the dishes, how I want to wash my hands after I use the bathroom. And again, the greater thing that I feel is, well, I got to think about how much do I care? How much do I really care that the water splatters on me? Or how much do I really care that um that I get that I wash my hands properly after I use the bathroom. I do really care about washing my hands properly and making sure there's no bacteria from using the bathroom. So, um, so I think that's something that um, to consider there. But then with washing dishes at the sink, I'm not really sure how I feel about the water splattering on me. Um, the bacteria involved there. I, I don't know how I feel about the bacteria, but I don't really like the wetness factor. So I will. I am clothed in the areas, especially that I might experience the splattering, the water splattering. So I guess I'll think about the experience that I want to have and what I care about, and giving myself the bare minimum of the cleanliness that will allow me to not have unwanted thoughts when I do touch a surface that I believe is unclean. And um, I think that comes with over time having a cleaning routine. Where if you have a regular cleaning routine, and whether that's once a week or whatever, that you can learn to trust that the faucet isn't dirty in your mind, and so that if your hand touches it, then that's okay. I mean, it's a faucet, it's it's there, it's in your vicinity of, it's right there when you wash your hands. It's in the vicinity of you washing your hands, so it's okay. But I guess if you clean it once a week, right? Or if you do, let's say, before touching it, your hands are dirty just from using the bathroom. You didn't get to wash your hands and your hands touches it right away. Then you spray it, you clean it right away, right? Because that's something that you do additional to your cleaning routine, because here you are and the bacteria touched it from your hand. I mean, that's like a clear reason to clean it right away. And then, you carry on as normal, and the next few days of washing your hands, if your hand touches it, you know that it's clean because you can trust yourself. So that's another thing, you can trust yourself. And that will also lessen the unwanted thoughts that you have, if you do touch something that you imagine is dirty. Because then you won't have the need to follow up with an action. So I'm still discovering this, and I hope this was helpful to you guys. It's definitely given me a lot to think about. And I realize how valuable this is, just to talk about these things and try to understand them. And so if you are having find yourself in a similar challenge, whether it's about thoughts that are outside of your control, or life that is actually outside of your control. I know we talked about before how the thoughts feel like that they are out of our control, and they may be temporarily, but we ultimately have control over our mind. But in our real life, outside of our mind, there are many things that are out of our control, and there are things that may be happening in your life right now that are outside of your control. And there will always be things that are happening in our lives out of our control. My takeaway from this, and I hope your takeaway, is number one, where can I find control? Within myself, within my mind, within my thoughts. So, what thoughts bring me satisfaction? What thoughts make me feel good? What thoughts bring me pleasure? What thoughts bring me delight? Not just in this moment, but also if I think about having those thoughts, that I had those thoughts in this moment, if I think about that in the future, that'll also feel good. Right? So, and I say that because there are certain thoughts that you can find pleasure in your mind right now, which may not be aligned with your principle or your integrity. That if you think about later on actually may not make you feel good. So what thoughts can you feel good about right now that you will also, looking back, reflecting on yourself, and the thoughts that you had in this moment, that will also make you feel good down the line, because you want to start a practice of this. You want to build a practice of this, that you have a list of a running list in your mind of things that you can go to that make you feel good. And I say that because, well, if it's a thought that you are simply having to seek sexual pleasure or physical pleasure within yourself, um, and you and that truly is not aligned with something that would make you feel good thinking about it and reflecting on it in the next moment, or in the next day, in the future, whenever. It's important that you find thoughts that make you feel good and that you would feel good reflecting on. So, number one, find satisfaction in your mind, in your thoughts. Find thoughts that you take delight in. And number two, find satisfaction and control over yourself, over what you can do for yourself, what work, what contribution, what act, what process, what doing, what art, what expression, what manifestation brings you delight. And from that will be born maybe your greatest contribution to the world. Contrast and dissatisfaction are incredibly useful. And not only are they useful, but they're part of life. They exist with everything else, and everything else exists because of them. Everything that we love and appreciate and admire and are so fond of, all of that exists because of the contrast. So use the contrast in your life. Allow it to direct you, redirect you to the things that and the ways in which you find delight. It's not going to be easy all the time. Life isn't easy, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it so is. Sometimes in just the pleasurable thought, in the thought of my student's face, sometimes it's so easy. And sometimes in thinking about, in just the gratitude that I have for the incense diffuser in my hand, and the lavender oil, and a clean desk, and a roof over my head, and the Cajun chicken that I'm going to eat for lunch today with the cauliflower rice. That, even simpler than that, the glasses that I'm wearing, the clean shirt that I have on, the bed that I made. There's so much gratitude to be found. There's so much appreciation. This window that I'm looking out, the tree that's right outside the window, that is my best friend, whose leaves wave to me every day. They're waving right now. And this tree dances with me and applauds me and loves me. My partner's car, his baby that's sitting in the parking lot,
this baby that has been with us for so long. She's an absolute delight. She is the hardest worker, and she's also the most appreciative creation of all the miles that she has been on. Still, she's got this optimistic, most bright outlook of the future of life. She's a true delight. And then her newer friend who sits 5 parking spaces to her right. Another delight, new and unseasoned, but full of hope. Full of hope for the future and for conquering everything and for every mile that it has yet to see but knows that it will. There is so much delight. And it is all around you, waiting to be found. Find it. Get lost in it. Get lost on it. Get lost on the delight. Why? Because when you do, your state will change. How you feel will enliven. You will enliven. Your vibration will enliven the space that you be from, you operate from, you speak from, will deepen. And I feel that just now and talking about our most newest addition to our car family, how she's full of hope. And finding this delight in a way that I had never thought about her before in such delight. In that way, just realizing that she looks forward to the future. She looks forward to every mile, to every inch of every mile. Gosh, she's a keeper. Not only is her beloved friend, her oldest and first addition to the family, not only is she a keeper, but the newest addition, the most hopeful, she is a keeper too. They are both keepers. They both in ways are untouched by life. One has so many miles and still has an outlook of life that one wouldn't even expect that a creation that has so many miles would have of life. And the other barely has any miles, but has this hopeful attitude that it will see everything and conquer everything, and is full of delight. Both of them are, in many ways, guiding themselves and staying in the light. It's truly remarkable, this exercise of finding the light. Look around you, look at your life. If you use the example of the cars that I just mentioned, the cars in your life, if you think about where they have been, where they have gone, where you have been, where you have gone in them, if you think about your children, if you think about the books on your shelves, what they mean to you, if you think about anything in your home, the desk, your laptop, your bed, what can't you take delight in? Please tell me. What around you can't you take delight in? The trash? Well, I mean, even the trash is going to be taken out soon, so I find delight in that. The contrast. The contrast. When our beloved baby, our first car, when she breaks down, or when our newest edition, when her engine doesn't turn on because her battery dies. It doesn't change our hope. It doesn't change their hope. They know they're perfectly fine. They know they're going to be perfectly fine. And also we know that they're going to be perfectly fine. As their owners and drivers, we know that they're going to be perfectly fine. And also in those moments we appreciate them as well. Maybe we appreciate them even more in those moments. And we give them the love that they need. What do you need? What is it that you need? Where do I need to take you? How can I help you? Right? It's almost like this energy. Okay, I need to restart your battery. Okay, I need to take you to the shop. Okay, you need to get this changed. You need to get that filled. It's the care. And the attention goes on fixing, right? The attention doesn't stay on, well, the engine won't turn on, the battery is dead. No, it's the attention goes to repairing it, to fixing it, to changing the situation, because we know that we can do that with a car. In the same way, we can do that with our mind, we can do that with ourselves, we can do that with us as human beings. Focus on what you want. Focus on the next step. Okay, so I have this crappy situation. You can insert any curse word there that you would like. I have the worst situation, and it sucks. It really sucks, and it feels the worst, and it's completely out of my control, and I can't do anything about it. I feel like I'm completely powerless about it. It might not be as clear as fixing a car, but it is as possible as fixing a car, and maybe even more possible than fixing a car. You just have to be the one to figure it out, and you will be the one to figure it out, and your life will be proof of that. Focus your attention on the next step, the next thing that you have to do to then restore, to then find satisfaction, to then get yourself working again, get yourself functional again. And what do you have to do? Give yourself some care, right? Maybe do something for yourself. And that doesn't have to be a bubble bath, right? For me, that's not a bubble bath. For me, it could be exercising. It could actually be doing some hard work, doing some hard work to clean my house, to give me the feeling of a clean house. So take care of yourself, right? And find control over then, well, what do you take delight in your work? What brings you satisfaction in creating something? Creating something for yourself. What have you learned that has greatly helped you in your life? That if you truly connect to how much it has helped you, then you know that it will help somebody else. It will help somebody else. Think about the reason that I'm making this podcast, how much this podcast has helped me. Even the things that I'm ashamed about, even the things that I'm not comfortable talking about, just talking about them furthers my own understanding of them so much. Just this one episode alone, if you haven't listened to anything else, in just this one episode that you are listening to, this has helped me so much that I know that it will help you if you need it. I know that it will help somebody else. So if I truly connect to how much it's helping me, then I have no reason not to share it. I have no reason to make it even better. I have no reason to create more from it, to create more of it. What in your life is helping you, has helped you, or is currently helping you right now? And it could be a new practice that you've started. Share that. Figure out what is the best way right now to share that with other people, and then constantly evolve that process as time goes on. But if you look at it almost as if that struggle, that adversity, that difficulty, that challenge that you experienced or are currently experiencing is not just for you to benefit from. Yes, you'll be the first person to benefit from. But our lives are intertwined, my friend. That's what humanity is. That's what it means to have a family. That's what it means to have a best friend who looks out for you, who takes care of you their whole life, who feeds you before they feed themselves, who takes care of you like they would their child. That's what it means to have family. That's what it means to have love. We are intertwined. Our journeys are intertwined so closely, and more closely than we might even know. What you are going through, if you went through all of it just so that your life could serve humanity, then you will go through that your whole life, right? Then there is a greater purpose for your life, for your suffering. First, you rose from it. You became the person that you never imagined you would be, that you didn't even know you wanted to be, maybe, that you didn't even know you were even in your cards to be, that maybe for so long you thought was impossible for you to be. You became that. You are becoming that every day. you are becoming more and more of that every day. And then who benefits second? Somebody else. People. Your best friend. Your family. The people you love the most. And when it's the people that you love the most that get to benefit from your work, your contribution, or just even you, the new you, the greater you, the you that has greater vitality, greater energy, greater life energy, greater joy, greater clarity, greater certainty, who stands in their knowing. When the people you love the most get to benefit from the new you, that's like love swirling around and dancing around and for eternity. That's the greatest love. When you give, when your child gets to receive from you your greater self-awareness. That's love in its best. So first, you benefit. And second, anyone else who is meant to will receive the second greatest benefit from you. So find satisfaction and pleasure and delight in yourself. And follow that. Stay in that good space. Use it. Use it to create. Use it to motivate you. Use it because when you are in that space, you will get the inspiration to follow through with the projects that you want to. Strive to put yourself in this good space and do what you need to find delight and satisfaction and to take care of yourself. Because you, my friend, are all you have in your life, in your recovery, in your growth, in your evolution, in the big picture of your life, in the small picture of your life, in every moment of your life. It is just you, and your life amounts to you. Your life from the day that you were born to your last breath. Everything will amount to you. You are ultimately the holder of your life, the one responsible for your life, the one accountable for your life. And that's a really beautiful thing when you know that you have control over your life and what you make of it. You have control over what you make of your life, even if you don't have control over the events of your life. You still have control over your life because you have control over your mind. And you will gain more and more control as each day goes by. Just focus on the delight. Be easy, my friends. You will find your way. Your best life is happening every day. It's in the works every day, I promise you. Even when it doesn't feel like it, even when you are challenged by your thoughts, by
the events in your life, by the very real things that are happening around you that you have no control over. It is all working for you if you use it. It's in your experience for you to use, and I really believe that the universe wants us to succeed. And everything that we find around us, every experience that we have, whether it's outside of us, outside our mind, or inside of our mind, it's really all a part of making us better. It's playing a role. It's trying to help us become the person that we never imagined, but we've always known we could be. So use it. Use everything. Use the contrast. Use the dissatisfaction. Use the heartbreak and the heartache. And most of all, use the things that you feel like are out of your control. Use the things that are out of your control, and use the things that you feel like are out of your control. Use them to find control and satisfaction over yourself. And your life will be sublime. Your life will be surreal. Because you have accepted reality. And along with accepting that, you have created your own reality, and you have created reality. I love you, my friends. This has been an absolute delight. Just like every episode. I just want to say thank you. I want to thank you. I want to thank you. I love you. Be well.